everybody. So today we are going to be talking about how to analyze a literary text. And when we're talking about literary texts, they are traditional texts, like stories and novels, but you can also consider a text something like the memes that we evaluated, or a video could be a text. Even a video game can be a text. So we'll start off by talking with what it means to analyze. And so this is important that you get this in your notes. Analysis is making observations and explaining what the text is not directly telling you. So you're digging a little bit deeper using your critical thinking skills to come up with interpretation that is not just surface level. Analysis is also a detailed examination of the elements of a text, typically used as the basis for a discussion of your interpretation. So when we talk about analyzing a text, we may have 20 different students in the room, and there may be 20 different interpretations for a text. Now, that doesn't mean that every single interpretation is correct, because you have to have evidence and it has to be reasonable, but there still can be many different ways to analyze the same text. So analysis is looking into what the author is trying to say or what you are supposed to understand from the text. If an author had to come out and directly tell us everything, then those works of literature that are so impressive would not be nearly as interesting or as fun to read. So just really quickly, since we talked about analyzing, we're talking about analyzing now, and previously we talked about evaluating. Remember, evaluating is when you're judging or critiquing something and you have to start with established criteria. When you're evaluating, you're trying to determine the value and the credibility of a text. But when you're analyzing, I think that evaluating is somewhat built into that naturally, especially when you are writing about your analysis. But analyzing is focused more on your interpretation and more on trying to make meaning out of the text. And after you make meaning out of the text, it then becomes easier to evaluate the text. So just keep in mind, when we're talking about analyzing, there is no one right answer, and decisions are usually reached through discussion and careful consideration of what the text does tell us. So how to analyze a text? Well, first of all, you have to start out your analysis by just making observations so that you can see what is available, what the author does provide for us. Then you have to ask yourself, okay, here is what I notice. Is there a deeper meaning behind any of this stuff that just seems surface level? You also have to ask yourself, is anything symbolic? So you have to use textual evidence, including symbols, to defend your interpretation when you're talking about analyzing. So in terms of the genre of analytical writing, analysis is argumentative and informative. You are informing the audience about what your interpretation is, but there's often an argumentative or a persuasive slant to it when you are trying to convince people that your analysis is the best or that it has the most evidence to back it up. So you are providing evidence to prove how and why you came to your interpretation. So it's one thing to have an interpretation, but it's quite another to be able to back that up with logic and reasoning and sound educated when you explain your analysis. So why is it important that we talk about analyzing? Well, there are a bunch of different reading strategies that you guys have learned in the past. You've learned about connecting and predicting and inferring, summarizing, imaging, questioning. There's a ton of reading strategies out there, but analyzing is one of those that we focus on a lot at the high school level because so much critical thinking is required. A lot of times that is a more advanced skill on Bloom's taxonomy, and it's something that's really important that you master. Otherwise, you're just not getting what you should be getting out of what you're reading. So it's important to better understand the text, but also to recognize the choices that the author has made to portray a topic in a certain way. So our analysis is often involving trying to figure out why the author created the text the way he or she did. and what message they were trying to convey that is not just surface level stated right to us. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is, in order to analyze, you need to ask yourself 3 questions, and this will be the basis for some analyzing that we're doing in class the next couple days. So first, you want to ask yourself, what is this text really about? After you get your observations done, what is this text really about? So what is the topic, or what do you think the theme is? Or what is the underlying message or moral? So what evidence do I have that proves the text is about this topic, message, theme, or moral? And then, is there anything symbolic in the text? You have to talk about symbolism when you're talking about analysis or analyzing a literary piece. Because if there's a deeper meaning, then it means that there's probably symbols that are representing an idea greater than the object or the thing itself. Okay? So that's what analyzing is. And so I want you to make sure that you have your notes all the way done. And tomorrow in class, we'll be practicing this skill. Okay? See you then. Okay, so let's do an example of analyzing a picture, and then I'm going to ask you guys to do one on your own also. Remember, pictures can be text also. And so if you look at this picture and make some observations, you'll notice that there's a guy who's kneeling down in front of a toilet, and the toilet, strangely, has an arm reaching up and grabbing onto him. And then you can see his right arm is reaching out and trying to press the flush button. So those are our observations. And at surface level, the picture is really not very impressive, even though it's a little bit funny. But then if we were to analyze this and try to come up with the deeper meaning, we would want to look for symbols. So is anything symbolic of something that's not obvious? So the first thing that comes to my mind is that arm reaching out of the toilet. So we might ask ourselves, what does that arm represent? And in my interpretation, I think that arm represents problems or negative influences in that person's life. And I think that those negative influences kind of are grabbing onto him like the temptations in our lives do. And sometimes they are hard to get rid of. And the flush button is maybe like a means of getting rid of those temptations or making good choices to keep us on the right path. So the fact that that guy is going to flush away his problems or the negative influences in his life, maybe that means that he's trying to get himself on the right path and do the right thing and hang out with the right people. So if we were to write that in a written format, it might look something like this. I think this picture is about how some people try to flush their problems away, but they keep coming back. Okay, so remember, whenever you're writing a paragraph, you have to start with your topic sentence. So in your topic sentence for an analysis paragraph, you want to make sure that you start by talking about what your interpretation is or what the deeper meaning is. And then you have to back that up with supporting details or evidence from the picture. So the first supporting detail is we can see the problems fighting back because the arm, which symbolizes the problems, won't flush away. So there we're talking about one of the symbols in the picture. A second supporting detail, since the guy is on his knees, we know the problems keep bringing him down. Okay, so being on his knees is more, is deeper than just being on his knees. It's actually like bringing somebody down in life. Also, the guy is trying to press the flush button, which could symbolize that he is attempting to put his problems off or push his problems away or get rid of his problems. So this is a really short written response. You can actually write a whole essay that is an analysis essay. But what I'll ask you guys to do now is get on Haiku and choose one of the pictures that are on Haiku and write an analysis of what you think that picture means. Make sure you start with your interpretation as your topic sentence, and then make sure you have a fully developed paragraph at least with supporting details that back up your interpretation. okay? And don't forget to start with your observations in general. That will help you with your interpretations. Okay, see you tomorrow.